This is the lowest unemployment rate in Australia in more than 13 years. It's equal fourth lowest unemployment rate since the ABS data series began on a monthly basis back in 1978. I repeat that. This is the equal fourth lowest unemployment rate in Australia since the ABS data series began back in 1978. 65,000 jobs were created across the country in the month of December. Now, 2/3 of those jobs were full-time jobs, and 58% of those 65,000 new jobs went to young people aged 15 to 24. Now, the Labor Party, and specifically the Shadow Treasurer Jim Chalmers, said early on in this pandemic the single biggest test of the coalition's management of the pandemic will be what happens to the unemployment rate. That was Labor's test that they set for the coalition. Well, the unemployment rate has been coming down, and jobs and more jobs have been created. The unemployment rate under Labor was 5.7%. Today, it's 4.2%. The underemployment rate today is lower than when Labor left office. The youth unemployment rate today is lower than when Labor left office. There were 250,000 more Australians in work today than when the pandemic began. And 1.7 million more people are in work since the coalition came to government. And 1 million of those are women. I repeat that. There are 1 million more Australian women in work today than when Labor last left office. It's an amazing statistic, and it shows the strength of our jobs market. But we know these are difficult times, and continue to see in many businesses across the peninsula here, across the community and across the country, looking for more workers, as well as dealing with a situation where a number of workers have contracted the Omicron variant. So we will get through this. Businesses like Machetta are getting through this. It's going to be challenging, but Australians can be very proud of what they have achieved together. Are there any questions?
Those unemployment figures out today, they don't reflect the second half of the month when Omicron wave really took off. Do you expect the unemployment rate to go up in future months?
Well, what we have seen is the trend of the unemployment rate come down, and we have seen a very strong jobs market. We have seen job ads come down slightly in recent weeks in the month of January as a result of the uncertainty created by the Omicron variant, but job ads are still 30% higher than they were a year ago. So we are seeing resilience in the economy, and I think that's the key message. Australian households and businesses have accumulated $360 billion on their balance sheets that was not there at the start of the pandemic. And that will help provide a buffer against the Omicron challenge. So we know there are great pressures at the moment, but we also know that the economy is very resilient, and a standout performer has been the labour market, where jobs, and more jobs have been created.
Yesterday and today, we talked about the enormous challenges that the system is under. The shortages of rapid tests, overwhelmed hospitals, and bare supermarket shelves. Is that something you expected when you plan to reopen the country following these lockdowns?
Well, no one should underestimate the challenge that Australia and indeed the world faces as a result of COVID-19. This is the first pandemic in more than a century. It's the biggest economic shock since the Great Depression, and the situation always changes. We had the initial wave, then we had the Delta outbreak. We had 13 million of our fellow Australians who were in lockdown, particularly in New South Wales and Victoria. Then we saw an easing of those restrictions. Then we've been hit by the Omicron variant. What is, though, encouraging is that the Omicron variant is 75% less severe than the Delta variant and earlier outbreaks.